Welcome to Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis. Today, I got my man, Coach Andrew, with me, and a lot of you guys have Instagrammed him with questions. So I took 10 questions, and I'm going to interview and answer those questions today. Stay tuned. All right, guys, exciting show today. A lot of people have questions for Coach Andrew. We're going to start with Instagram handle HGHG234. So Mr. HGHG234 is asking, how do you break out of a slump? I guess my man is losing a lot and doesn't know how to win again. How do we get out of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. When you play at any level, club, high school, professional, college, collegiate, you're going to have these moments like where you feel like you're going to hit your highest peak. You're going to be like, oh, I'm playing unreal. Like, I don't have to worry about tennis for a while. And then there's days you're like, why am I playing tennis? I'm playing so bad, right? We're going to have these moments. So for me, what I like to do, or what I take to heart when I practice, is there's going to be days where you play awful, right? You have days, I have days. Even our person back there has some bad days. But the biggest part is learning how to be aware of it, learning how to train to be aware. And instead of trying to dwell on the little mistakes, think about the positives that are within tennis, or even without tennis. Like maybe look at the sky. Look, hey, it's a pretty nice day outside. I mean, it's not raining. We're having fun. It's sunny outside, and use that and as a platform to build. And then if you win a point, say, let's go. Come on, I got this. I got the next point, and build your momentum there. It first becomes baby steps, right? It's not giant steps overnight. It's baby steps, and then if you keep doing it over and over and over again, those small points become almost like a big turnaround. So I would say start off with encouraging yourself, or just take time and realize maybe you don't have to think about tennis. Maybe just look at something else and be like, I'm pretty happy about it, and then try to distract yourself from being so mad or so upset to using it as a positive factor.
Right. I think a lot of the time people just stress about it way, way too much.
Yeah.
Like, it's a beautiful day. You're alive, right? You got a meal on your table. You can eat, right? You don't have to worry about anything but tennis, right? Therefore, you're worrying about tennis. So I know this is an old cliche. What about taking it 1 point at a time?
It's true. You have to take 1 point at a time. Like, even that's why you see like a lot of the professional players when they lose a few points here and there, there's a reason why they go back to the back of the court and tap a racket or just use a towel. It's because they need to reset themselves, right? They know they had 2 bad points. They're like, hey, you know what? I got to take a little break. Got to reset myself. Got to take myself out of the match right now for a bit. And then afterwards, when I step onto that baseline again, I'm getting ready, right? Next point's on, have that short-term memory, and then move on, right? It's very hard to do, and it's tough, right? It's not easy. So the biggest thing is trying to, like I said before, you have to be aware, learning how to be aware, and then maybe making small adjustments, making small changes, hey, let that one go, right? Hey, if I miss that at the net, let's miss it long, and I'll be happy about it, be content with it, right? It's just making those tiny changes that actually practice that every single day that would actually benefit you more. There's some days you're gonna feel like, oh, I'm taking a step backwards, but you're gonna have a few of those days. But when you keep doing it progressively over time, you'll see that outcome.
My guess, and this is only a guess from personal experience, is my man here is just tight, right? You're overthinking it, you're tight. What about just saying, hey, screw it, I'm just going to let it rip, goes in or not, it doesn't matter. Does something like that work?
Yeah. I always tell people, the worst mistake in tennis, or the biggest sin in tennis, is to miss net, right? If you miss long, I'm pretty content, because that's why you hear some of your coaches say hey, miss long, right? If you're missing at net, why not miss long, right? It's because it encouraged you to say the fact, hey, if I hit this ball and just hit through, I mean, there's a good feeling to it, right? No, everyone feels good hitting through the ball.
Right.
No one likes being pushed and like kind of getting tight and getting like trying to put the ball over the net. Everyone loves hitting through the ball. So that's why a lot of the coaches say, hey, you just got to hit through. Like, I don't mind you missing long. Like, I'm actually happy if you miss long, right? It's just because there's that shock change that you can see that, right? And with the mental aspect of it, it's a little tough because you have to ingrain yourself. But when you have the physical aspect behind it, right? Like you hitting the ball out, but you making that physical change,
right,
can correlate to that. Can feel the difference. You're like, okay, you know what? I'm okay with missing out. That's a good miss.
Right. So if you hit the net, right, that means you're tight. It means you're gripping it too tight, right? If you're hitting it long, that means you're loose. We want to see you loose. Okay. So hopefully that helped. Next question from Adrian Wan. Okay. So Adrian asks, tennis path for a 5-0 player with no background in tennis. So I'm guessing what this means is Adrian's a 5-0 player. He wants to probably go into the pro circuit a la Coach Chris. So what is the best way to do that?
That's a great question. I think if you're 5-0, I mean, I feel like you have some collegiate experience, I would say. I would say just maintain your whatever shape you were in when you're done with college. As you can tell, tennis is very physically demanding because there's so much involved. A lot of footwork, a lot of core. Also, if you're a 5-0 player, I would suggest you to play more matches. I would play a lot of matches, definitely for sure. And I would start seeing what you like. What I mean is start seeing what game you developed, right? I think you should have a good understanding of what game you've had developed and start to hone in your game and game situation points to your base. So what I think is one important is keeping that physical, like that fitness up, right? Maintaining that fitness at least at a minimum, and also playing a lot of matches and really focusing in on your game, right? That's why if you see an interview with Federer, he says, it took me a few years to understand who I am. What he means by that is he needs to know what he doesn't like, what he can trust during points, what he can do during points, and what kind of momentum he has that makes him play his best tennis, what we call in the zone, right? He needs to figure out what makes him be in the zone in crucial moments in the match, right? So I would say those two things would be the biggest things if you want to go play professional tennis.
Right. So know your capabilities, right? Play to your strengths.
Yeah.
Right. You never want to play to your weaknesses. Okay. So I would also suggest maybe entering tournaments, when we get back to playing local tournaments or semi-national tournaments, on like the ITF tour, and seeing how you do, right? Try to get in. I mean, even if you get into a wild card situation or a challenge, I mean, what do they call that?
Satellites?
Yeah, satellites. No, where you have to qualify to get into the
tournament.
tournament.
Play qualifiers, yeah.
Oh, yeah, play qualifiers. Exactly, to see if you can get into the tournament just to get some experience against, like bigger hitters or higher level players.
Yeah.
Right? So just try tournaments, try local tournaments, there's city tournaments.
Yeah.
Like play everything you can to build up your, your regiment, your confidence, right? To see how you could do. Just like do what Chris does, right? Just like,
you travel. I mean, that's the best part of being a pro player is you get to travel. You have the freedom to travel and see these different cities and also play tennis. I mean, that's the best part of it. You enjoy those months just traveling, having a good time and playing the sport that you love. So I would encourage you to say, if you still want to play, go for it. I mean, like you said, like Harry said, play a lot of tournaments, play a lot of first local or even some qualifiers. And I mean, now UTR is happening again, so play some UTR matches. I mean, there's a lot of college guys and some pro players even playing on the UTR tournaments, and there's prize money. So anything with prize money, you're gonna have some great competition.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody's gonna want that.
Everyone wants, yeah. So everyone wants to play, and I mean the level is high, so you will get exposure to see what the top level is like up there.
All right. So next question from Choman Roy.
Mm-hmm.
How do you train your mind when you are down a set or down in a match to come back? Like, how do you change your mindset around? Like, I'm down a set. What do I do? How do I pick myself up? Is probably what he's asking.
Yeah, that's a really good question too. That's not a very easy task to do. I've been there before at my college career. I mean, my sophomore year, I played a lot of three setters, so I understand that. I've been in situations like that. It's hard I wouldn't say it's hard to train, but it's hard to be aware and how to get out of the slump. So what I mean by that is, usually what happens is when you start losing, you don't get rhythm on the first set, so the guy's crushing you, and you don't feel great. Second is you get frustrated with yourself, right? Kind of relating back to that first question that we had, like about how to get out of that slump. Mm-hmm. It's just realizing when we get to this thing called a shell. I call it a shell, is when you start spiral, or I also call it the snowball effect. When something doesn't go your way, it starts building and building and building to this big snowball, to a point where it just becomes a huge avalanche coming towards you, and It's going to lead to your outcome. And what I try to tell you, or try to tell myself, and I've done this a lot in my college career, I had kind of those situations, was learning how to recognize if I'm not playing well, or recognize that the player's playing well. I got to figure out a way to get him out of his rhythm. Is learning how to think outside the box. So instead of really honing in on your mistakes, think about honing in on what can I do to make this guy get off his rhythm, or make him get out of his zone. That's the biggest thing I believe you need, like, for yourself as a player to work on, is learning how to change your mindset from blaming yourself to being more open to say, hey, you know what? Something's not working. Let's try something else. It's like a game of chess, right? No one really, when you start pondering a certain move, it lingers in the back of your head, and you're like, man, I shouldn't make that move. Instead of that, be like, all right, I messed up in a move somewhere here. Let's try to salvage that and make it playable. Right? It's trying to be learning how to be resourceful, learning how to be adaptive, and also learning how to accept that you made a mistake or not playing well, and realizing that, hey, you can still win this match if you're not playing well. Learning how to just be adaptive and in control, or be adaptive.
Right. No tennis player is going to ever be perfect every day.
Yeah.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just have to kind of be aware of that. Tennis is one of those games that you cannot perfect, mm-hmm. right? Nobody wins 6-0, 6-0, right? So now, if you're going down that spiral to crashing and burning, right, you have a decision to make, mm-hmm. right? Are you going to just keep playing your same game and going down that spiral, or are you going to make a conscious effort to say, hey, what I'm doing ain't going to do nothing, right? I'm not going to hurt this guy, mm-hmm. right? So what are you going to do now, right? Send it up in the air, throw some air under it, change the speed of the ball, right? See if that changes anything. Serve and volley, right? Do 2 kick serves. Mm-hmm. Do something that changes the momentum, changes the tide, right?
Yeah, correct. That's what I like to say, like, always be adaptive. As you can tell, or as tennis we can tell, is I love Bruce Lee. I love his quote, be like water. If you heard that, if you haven't heard it, check it out. It's a really good quote that he said. But you always want to be adaptive, right? Like, like I said before, there's days you're gonna feel great, that you're playing so well that any ball you hit is gonna go in the court, or to days where there's days where like I can't make a ball in the court. I can dink it and it just goes to the net or it just flies 20 feet out, right? There's going to be days like that. And yes, tennis is not, no one can perfect the sport. There's no one. Even Roger can't really perfect the sport. He makes it look effortless, but there's days that he doesn't play well, right? You saw there's days that he actually cracked a racket in a match, right? There's days that like, that guys like, no one's going to play great. And you just got to accept the fact that like, hey, if I'm not playing great, you got to have to say that there's a mindset of saying, all right, I know I'm not playing great, but hey, let's change something up. Let's try to win this match. Nitty, like gritty and grimy and ugly. I encourage you guys to read a book by Brad Gilbert,
Winning Ugly.
Winning Ugly. That's a really good book because everyone has to win ugly somehow, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you play pretty tennis. It's not going to get you much, right? So learning how just to win, no matter what kind of circumstances you're in, to win and compete.
Pull out all stops, man. You know. All right. So this one's right up your alley.
Yep.
It's by Banana Yellow 2. Banana Yellow 2? Took that from me. All right. All right. So, what can I do? Oh, this is right up your alley. What can I do to play D1 in college without a scholarship? How do I get a D1 coach's attention?
That's a great question. Honestly, I would say is if you want to get a D1 college, definitely a D1 college coach's attention, is by first sending them emails saying, hey, you're interested. I would love to be a walk-on on your team. There's like some of my friends actually were walk-ons on the team, and afterwards later in their careers started to play on the lineup. So I would say reach out to a coach, reach out to any coach, get a response from them. If they respond back, that's great news. So they're looking into you and they're actually starting to pay attention to you. I would say the biggest thing is just play a ton of tournaments. Play a lot of tournaments and just trust yourself. You can make videos for us. We'll take a look as well. But I would say the biggest thing is playing a lot of tournaments. What we look for in a player is usually their attitude on and off the court. So let's say if I was going to go scout a player and I would say, hey, this guy would be a good fit for our team. And I've seen him, like he sent me an email. I've been tracking his records for a little bit, wanted to see him play. And afterwards, I got to see him play and say, like, if he has a great attitude, well, he's a guy I want him on my team for. Well, if he doesn't look good, like he doesn't act like a college elite, like or mature player, well, I'm like, I don't know about it now. So just make sure when you're playing or match or a tournament, you want to make sure you have, it's kind of like showcasing your talent, right? It's a showcase, right? So if you're going to be a player that really wants to bring it, I can see that from your performance, and I'll definitely take a look at you deeper.
Right. Bring the best you all the time, because you don't know who's watching sometimes. So make sure you have that positive attitude, right? Because nobody wants somebody to bring down the whole team, right? So we want rah, okay? Positive. We want that positive spirit, okay? So what about, I mean, you can always do it like John McEnroe. You know, like I hear the story, John McEnroe didn't play tennis very much, not highly recruited, went out to Stanford, basically said, hey, who's the number one guy here, right? I want to play him, right? Took his behind down and became the number one player at Stanford. You want to get somebody's attention? You go and beat the number one guy at that school that you go to. You will get the attention you want and deserve. All right. So, next question. So Janice asked, are you single, my man?
I'm taken. I'm taken. I am taken.
Yeah, sorry, ladies and guys. My man is taken.
I'm taken.
Okay. Next question from North Star Traveler. What string and tension are you currently using?
Right now, I am currently using Slinko Confidential. My tension's actually at 57 pounds. I know for some people that is a little tight, but I like to hit through my ball, so that's why I put it on a higher gauge.
So Coach Gu actually has to keep the ball in the court with his big swing. So we got to keep it a little tighter on that little 95 head of his. It's Slinko Confidential 1.25. 16L is the gauge. 57 pounds.
Yep.
Okay, I'll convert it to kilos down below if you want. All right. So, Sonic Lee on the next one. Let's see. So, Sonic's got a problem with his serve. He's got rotator cuff issues. He hears clicks when he rotates his rotator cuff. Is that normal?
No. First, I would say please check a doctor to make sure that your shoulder cuff is actually okay. It should not be clicking. That means something is wrong within your shoulder cuff. So please, I would say please check it out with your doctor first. Second of all, what I usually do is I actually did a video, or it's going to come soon, is actually warming up your arm. So what you see usually with a lot of the collegiate guys or the pros, they always do this arm warm up, right, with the band, and they always do this and that and all that good jazz to warm up the shoulder cuff. Is because we overuse our shoulder cuff a lot, like forehands, backhands, volleys, serves, overheads. There's a lot going on, and it's using every part of our body. So what it means is basically when one muscle is tight within the shoulder cuff, the other muscles will start compensating for them. If those get tired, well, the other part of your body has to compensate, the other part of your muscles. And then afterwards, you'll get this weird pain in your shoulder cuff, and that means your whole arm is being overused. It's basically your whole shoulder cuff is being overused, therefore it is making some weird sounds. It's like almost kind of like relying like on car parts. It's like if one part's not working, well, it has to compensate, and then the whole thing goes to whack. So make sure recovery is the biggest thing first. I would say if it's still like a frozen shoulder kind of issue, I would say if you can lift this a certain amount of here, I would say start abbreviating your serve. So instead of really taking it full back, I would say if you watch like Andy Roddick back in the day, he actually just starts to serve like this. So always have your arm up in this kind of throwing position or quarterback position, and have it just start like this and then serve.
Right. So try to abbreviate the serve a little bit. I mean, I kind of know what you're talking about because mine has been clicking since I was, my teenager. I've never really had it checked out. I probably should have. I have a very, very tight shoulder, and it does click. So I know what you're talking about. I, like a lot of kids, never warmed up. So I just went right after it all the time, and I'm sure I've damaged my rotator cuff somehow, but never saw a doctor because I can still lift it like this. But if you can't do this, okay, go see a doctor for sure.
Yes, please.
Okay, next question. I'm a ducky too, writes. How do you like your Mizuno shoes, the Wave Exceed 4s?
So these are honestly really, really comfortable. I was very impressed with these shoes. Like you said, they were Tennis Magazine of the Year. And honestly, these shoes are great. I love these shoes. I wear them every time, especially coaching them because they're actually pretty comfortable. But to play around, to move around, it's light. I feel pretty secure in these. Usually I slide, so it has that stability of sliding around. But overall, I mean, this is a great shoe. Usually I have the biggest problem is the toe box, because usually with some Nike shoes I used to wear back in the day, especially the Vapor Tours or the cages, you would always feel like you had to break them in, right? So like the toe box here would be too tight, and then afterwards you'll feel like this weird kind of pain, right, from the shoes being squeezed in, and then afterwards it takes 2 to 3 weeks to get used to it, and then afterwards it gets better. This one I had to break it in like 1 or 2 days, and afterwards it felt pretty nice. So I really love these shoes. I keep keep asking Tennis Spin to get me more of these, and I've been in love with them ever since.
Perfect. So a little bit of break-in, if any. I would say they're pretty much great out of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a reason why, it's a tennis shoe of the year.
Yeah, it's honestly my favorite shoe right now currently.
All right. Try a pair.
Yeah,
Try a pair
I would say everyone try one. It's really, really comfy.
All right, next question from Jan G. How do you get a more consistent and powerful serve?
That is a good question.
Right up your alley.
That is right up my alley. As I did a lot of serving videos. My first one with Tennis Spin was actually with a serving video. We were fixing a person's serve. I'm sorry, not serve. It's Jake's serve. So what happened was, what I always think about adding more power or more spin to the serve.
Right.
Is learning what kind of contact you want to have with the ball. First of all, to add more spin, you got to figure out the contact. So what is a good key indicator is how the ball sounds when you make impact. So with learning the impact of the ball, as you can tell, pretend my hand is the racket, right? If we make contact like this is flat. If we make a slice serve, you think about getting outside the ball, right? You want to make sure it's coming out, and then it creates this natural spin to slice out. And then for the people who want to learn kick, it is a completely different thing. You want to get basically on top of the ball, creating this natural spin to go up and naturally come over the ball. So that's one of the key factors of learning how to get some more spin and creating a little more, variety in your arsenal of serves. To add more speed, you really want to make sure your right arm is really relaxed. If you're a lefty, your left arm is really relaxed. Therefore, when you're hitting your serve, right, you want to have a relaxed arm. Think about like when you see pitchers on the mound, or like you can tell that when they wind up, they actually take back slow, and then when they're about to release, they let go. They stay basically as relaxed as they possibly can and just unload on the ball. So the same thing as the serve. When you start serving, you want to take your time on the load, and after when you get to this certain part, you want to make sure you're relaxed and you're speeding up through all the way through your finish. And lastly is the toss. The toss is the biggest thing. You want to make sure you have a high enough toss, but not too high to a point where you have to wait for the ball, like not like a Stephen Curry floater, like it's super high up and you're waiting, right? It's high enough that when you get to its peak, you're already loaded and you're exploding up to the ball.
Toss, easy motion, right? Unload, okay? Practice, practice, practice.
Yes.
Serve is one of the hardest things to do, one of the hardest things to learn, right? We all have bad habits. So try to learn it the right way and do it consistently the right way. So practice it.
Yep.
Okay. Xavier G23 writes, how did you and Harry meet?
When I was out of college, I didn't know I was doing yet, so I decided to, still play tennis and wanted to be within the coaching world as well. So I actually had a mentor,
Pablo Perez de Almeida, the USF head coach.
The former USF head coach at USF. And he was actually one of my coaches back in the day working for the USTA. He was a volunteer for the USTA, and I was on his team when I was, I believe, 14 or 15 when I first met him. So I've always been in contact with him. You'll never know who's out there looking for you guys when you're playing on tournaments. So it's always good to keep in touch with some of the coaches in the USTA who are there to help you out. So I reached out to him and he said, hey, we got a coaching opportunity for you at the Cow Club. And I was like, awesome. You know what? I've heard good things about the Cow Club. And, my mentor was there. And then there's some great talented coaches like Steve Jackson and Matt Barry. So why not? Let's go try it out. And, wanted to give back to my community of tennis because it gave me a lot of opportunities to open up doors. And, decided to go there. And that's when I first met Harry. He was on the stringer back there. And ever since then, he made these corny jokes. And I was like, you know what? This guy's all right, I guess. So I started partying up with him. And he's decided to make his YouTube channel, Tennis Spin. And afterwards, the rest is history. And then I got to start my Instagram because of him.
So we did meet at a bar and we did walk out together. Okay, that's the story I'm going by.
All right, sure. Whatever you like, sir. Whatever you like.
All right, so I want to thank Coach Andrew for sharing the 10 questions from his Instagram with me to share with you. All right, so thank you, Coach Andrew.
Thank you, Harry.
All right, so thank you for watching Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis.